Good afternoon, morning, evening, whenever you're watching this, pandas. This is Mr. Stam for our introductory lesson on the fishes and for our marine biology class. And we're going to talk briefly about um, some very primitive species, and they're pretty interesting. And hopefully, leading into eventually the chondrichthyes, sharks and rays, which I know you'll find really exciting too. So this is just a little bit of an introduction, mostly about the jawless fish. But we will start our lesson with a couple questions. So let's play America's favorite game show, and that's: is it fish or is it fishes? Well, that's a great question, actually, and grammar teachers around the world have come to some conclusions here. Um, but that is a fish. That'd be singular. But those are also fish. But these are fishes. So let me kind of tell you the differences so we can actually use the correct terms. And I'm not going to guarantee every single time I'm going to use the correct grammar. But obviously, singular is fish. But if you're speaking of fish, all one species, like that middle picture, those are all fish. Those are some fish. There's 100 fish there. So it's not, it's just fish. But if you're talking in marine biology slash zoology kind of terminology, and you're talking about the numbers of different types of fish, that's where you use fishes. Those are a group of fishes right there in that last picture. Fishes, plural, would be much more the different types of fish, the diversity of fish that we can see. Now, also, let's play America's second favorite game show, and that is this a fish or a no fish? Well, let's look at all these things. Um, we have a lot of different things going on here. This obviously is not a fish. It's a starfish. This is not a fish. It's a jellyfish. And this over here is a crayfish. Now, those three things are not fish, but they have the word name fish in them. Those are just poor common names, is what I would call them. They're not very good names because they have the word fish in them. This is a squid. Obviously, it's not a fish also. These three are fish, though. Clownfish, it's a great white shark, and this is a lamprey, which we're going to talk about today. Those are actually all fish, and we'll talk about that today. So fishes, there's a great diversity of fishes, and this is the way we break them down into groups or the actual taxonomy of them. They're all in um, the phylum Chordata, and we'll talk about what that means possibly later, but for now we're going to jump into it. It basically includes the vertebrates. There's a couple exceptions to that rule, but the vertebrates with a backbone. There are a couple non-vertebrate, you know, chordates, but we're not going to talk about those right now. Diversity-wise, there is a superclass, which is above the classes, called Agnatha. Those are the jawless fish. We'll get to those very soon. And then the jawed fish are the Gnathostomata. Those are the class Chondrichthyes, the cartilaginous fish, sharks and rays, and Osteichthyes, osteo meaning bone, bony fish. And actually, for Chondrichthyes, chondra means cartilage. So Chondrichthyes, bony or cartilage fish, Osteichthyes, bony fish. But we're going to stress today the Agnatha, the jawless fish. Now, in general, the first fish probably on the planet were Agnatha, the jawless fish. A meaning not having, and Gnath, Agnatha, means jaw. So not having a jaw. They have a long, slender body a lot of times. They are supported by cartilage. There's a very generalized look at what they would look like. As you can see, has the notochord, the nerve cord, those structures that pretty much vertebrates have. Three-chambered heart in this case. And some fish actually have a two-chambered heart. They have fins to swim. Obviously, in the head area, the cranial area, they have all their sense organs, nose, eye, inner ear, things like that for sensing. Pretty generalized fish structure. The very first ones were called the ostracoderms, or ostracoderms, I guess, if you want to call it that way. They're basically jawless fish with armored plates, and they're very common in the Devonian period, about 400 million years ago. These are some renditions of what they would have looked like based on fossilized finds. Pretty cool. No jaws in these. There's no jaw structure, but they are very much a fish-like organism because they are fish. Today's modern, I guess, versions of Agnatha include the hagfish, which is common in, you know, colder waters of the East Coast. They're jawless scavengers. They're on the bottom and they're always looking to eat whatever they can find on the ocean floor. They look eel-like, but they're definitely they're not classified as eels. They have some. They're just because eels have jaws. These hagfish are jawless. They do have teeth. Just because you don't have jaws doesn't mean you can't have some kind of teeth structure. And they that I'm more familiar with because I've studied freshwater ecology a lot. And those are the lampreys. And lampreys are found in the Ohio River near us, in streams around here, all over the country. And if you've ever caught a fish with something growing on like this, looks like growing off the side, that's actually another fish, a jawless fish, an Agnatha, called a lamprey. It's attached to it. It's actually an ectoparasite. And this is the business end of a lamprey. You don't want to get involved with that. There's no jaw there, but those teeth just kind of latch on with some suction, and there's a tongue that comes down that can scoop out flesh, and they can make their you know, eat their food basically. This is one swimming around. They're definitely fish. There's the fins right there. They would have a backbone, things like that. But that business end is pretty scary stuff, actually, if you ask me. Lampreys are pretty intimidating, but awesome organisms. Their life cycle is pretty cool. They actually reproduce in streams, smaller streams, and once they lay their you know, the larvae hatch, they basically the larvae burrow into the ground and actually are filter feeders. They actually would filter all the food coming. They kind of stick their head out and they filter the food. They go back down if they're scared or they, you know, or, you know, something's trying to get them. And then when they actually mature, there's a metamorphosis where they actually turn to an adult lamprey. They migrate back towards the lake where most of them hang out, and they basically are parasites in that lake on other fish. So pretty cool life cycle. Here's a close-up of their mouth. Here are the keratinized teeth. They have keratin, a protein, and this is sucking onto something here. There's this tongue here that actually has some rasping ability that will kind of lower down when they're eating and can rasp away that flesh, so you can actually open up a wound and take all the fluids that they need, the blood and things like that, that they're going to eat for their meal, basically. So they actually have this suction. It's pretty powerful stuff. On the actual notes I will post on Google Classroom, these are some great videos I definitely encourage you to watch from those notes. If you want to see hagfish actually release a slime that's fairly disgusting in times of stress and when they want to get away. Sea lampreys have had some big time consequences in the Great Lakes, and also an episode of River Monsters, great show, where he's trying to catch blood-sucking lampreys. Makes it more scary than it really is, probably, but pretty cool stuff. So any questions, let me know. And that's the Agnatha. Our next lesson will definitely be on the sharks and rays, which we're heading towards next. So have a great day, everybody.